You are standing in a steel crow's nest, 60 feet above the ocean. The night is clear. The stars are out. The sea is perfectly, unnaturally still. Somewhere ahead of you, in the dark, something is waiting. You don't know it yet. You will. This is the story of one night. Not the whole ship. Not the hundreds of stories unfolding in the first-class dining rooms, in the third-class dormitories, in the engine room 7 decks below. Those stories will come. This is the one that starts everything. The man at the top. The man in the dark. The man whose voice was the first to say the word that split this night into before and after. His name was Frederick Fleet. He was 24 years old. He had been at sea since he was 12. He was not famous, not wealthy, not remarkable in any particular way, except for this. On the night of April 14th, 1912, he was standing in the crow's nest of the RMS Titanic when the iceberg appeared out of the dark. He rang the bell 3 times. He picked up the telephone. He said, "Iceberg right ahead." The officer on the bridge said, "Thank you." And the ship did not stop. In this story, you are the lookout. The night is yours. This is where it begins. The cold hits you the moment you climb out of the hatch, not the polite cold of an autumn evening or the damp cold of a rainy morning. This is the North Atlantic in April, and the cold here has a different quality entirely. It is purposeful, almost aggressive. The kind of cold that doesn't settle on your skin, but gets inside it, pressing through your coat and your jumper and your undershirt until it finds the warmth underneath and begins patiently to take it from you. You pull yourself up into the crow's nest and close the hatch beneath you, and the sound of the ship below, the engine vibration, the distant music, the hum of 3,000 people living their lives becomes muffled, then almost gone. Up here, there is only wind and the faint creak of the mast and the sound of the ocean, which is barely a sound at all tonight, more of an absence. You grip the railing and look out. The sea is flat, impossibly flat. In all your years on the water, you have rarely seen it like this. Not a wave, not a swell, not the smallest ripple catching the starlight. Just a black mirror stretching to every horizon, perfectly still, as if the ocean itself is holding its breath. Above you, the stars are extraordinary. No moon tonight. You noted that when you came on watch, filed it in the back of your mind the way you filed everything useful. But the stars are filling in for it. Thousands of them, more than you can count. Hard and cold and very bright in the way they only get on the clearest winter nights. Beautiful, you think. And then you stop thinking about beautiful and start doing your job. This is what you do. You watch. That is the whole of it. You stand in this steel tube, 60 feet above the waterline, and you watch the ocean ahead of the ship, and you look for things that should not be there. Rocks, debris, other vessels, ice. You watch with your eyes, and you watch with something older than your eyes, the part of you that has been at sea for 12 years and has learned to read the dark the way other men read books. You are good at this. You have always been good at this. Tonight the dark is telling you nothing. Tonight the dark is quiet. Reginald Lee climbs up beside you at the start of the watch, same as always, and you divide the dark between you without discussion. Left side and right side. You've worked together before. There's a comfort in that, in the familiar rhythm of 2 men doing a job they know how to do. "Clear night," Lee says. "Very," you say. That's most of the conversation. Men on watch don't talk much. Talking means a part of your attention is somewhere other than the ocean, and your attention belongs to the ocean. After a while, Lee says, "Shame about the glasses." You know what he means. Before the voyage began, back in Southampton, there had been binoculars in the crow's nest locker. Standard issue, the kind that turned the dark from a wall into something you could read. But then there had been a last-minute change among the officers. David Blair had been taken off the ship, and in the shuffle, the key to the locker had gone with him. No one had sorted it out before the Titanic sailed. No one seemed to think it was urgent. So there are no binoculars, just your eyes, naked in the dark and 60 feet of altitude, and whatever the North Atlantic decides to show you. We'll manage, you say. Because that's what you do. You manage. You've been managing since you were 12 years old. You don't think much about the binoculars after that. You have worked without them before, and the eyes you were born with have served you well enough. What you don't know, what you cannot know, and standing in the dark with the stars overhead and the flat black sea ahead, is that the absence of those binoculars will matter tonight in a way that no absence of equipment has ever mattered before. That the difference between seeing something in time and seeing it too late is, tonight, a locked box and a missing key. You don't know this, so you watch with what you have. By 11, the cold has become its own presence in the crow's nest. Your fingers stopped feeling individual things an hour ago. You can grip the railing. You can feel the pressure of it in your palms. But the finer sensations, the texture of the metal, the difference between fingertip and knuckle, are gone. Your hands are tools now, functional but distant, like borrowed equipment. Your nose stopped running, which sounds like an improvement but isn't. And it means the cold has progressed past the point of your body, trying to warm itself, and into the point of your body, simply enduring. You breathe in through your nose and feel nothing, and breathe out and watch your breath disappear into the dark. A small white ghost, gone. Your ears hurt. Not the dull ache of ordinary cold, but a specific, insistent pain. The kind that makes you aware of the exact shape of your ears in a way you are never aware of them in warmer weather. You have your collar up and your cap pulled down, and it doesn't matter. The cold finds the gap between them without effort. Below you and behind you, the Titanic moves through the dark at 22 knots. You can feel the speed of it in your feet. A faint vibration transmitted up through the mast from the engines deep in the ship's belly. You can see it in the way the stars above you are perfectly still, while the ocean around you slides past. The black water moving backward on both sides of the hull. The white wake spreading out behind you like a road you've already traveled. Somewhere below, in the first-class smoking room, men are playing cards. In the dining saloon, the last of the evening's guests are finishing their brandy. In the third-class berths, families are settling their children into bunks, talking quietly in half a dozen languages about what America will look like, what it will smell like, what a new life feels like when you're finally standing inside it. You think about none of this. You watch the dark. The thing about a long watch in the cold is that it teaches you something about the nature of attention. In the first hour, you are alert in an active way, searching, scanning, your focus moving across the dark with intention. In the second hour, the cold begins to work on you, and the alertness becomes something different, something more passive and more total. You stop looking for things. You simply receive. Your eyes are open and the dark flows into them, and you have become, without deciding to, a part of the watch itself, a piece of equipment, the most important piece. You are the eyes. Everything depends on what the eyes see. There is something wrong with the dark ahead. You don't know this yet. It is not a thought you are having. It is something older than thought, a gathering unease at the edge of your perception. The animal part of you that has been at sea since childhood, registering a change in the information it is receiving before the conscious part of you has caught up. The sea is still flat. The stars are still out. The ship is still moving at speed through the dark. Everything looks the same as it looked an hour ago, but something has shifted. Lee feels it too. He hasn't said anything. There's nothing to say, nothing specific to point to. But you have been working alongside him long enough to know when his attention has changed quality, and it has. He is standing differently. His face is turned slightly toward the area of ocean directly ahead. But you look at the horizon. The horizon on a clear night has a quality to it. The line where the dark of the ocean meets the dark of the sky. Slightly lighter, slightly different in texture, enough to orient by. You have been using that line all night without consciously thinking about it. Your eyes finding it the way your feet find level ground, without you having to look down. The horizon looks different now. There is something sitting on it. You are not alarmed yet. You have been at sea for 12 years, and you have learned that the ocean presents things to you at a distance, and they are often nothing. A trick of the light, a wave formation, the shadow of a cloud on the water. You have learned to look twice before you ring any bell, to be sure before you speak. Because a lookout who cries danger, where there is no danger, is a lookout who is not trusted when the danger is real. You look again. It is not nothing. It takes shape in the dark ahead of you. First, it is a suggestion, a mass, a density, a place where the stars stop. Then it is a shape, low and wide and very pale, rising out of the flat black water with the specific wrongness of something that does not belong there. Then it is real, fully real, close enough that the scale of it registers in your body before it registers in your mind. It is enormous, not as enormous as it will be called later, in the newspapers and the inquiries and the decades of reeling. The iceberg that stopped the Titanic has grown in the telling the way all catastrophes grow, but enormous enough. A wall of pale blue-white rising from the waterline. A dark at its waterline where the sea has worn it. Bright at its peaks where the starlight catches the ice. You are already moving. Your hand finds the bell rope, and you pull it 3 times. 3 sharp rings, the signal, the code, the thing your body has rehearsed 1,000 times in 12 years of watches. And you are already reaching for the telephone at the same moment. The black handle, cold against your palm, even through the numbness, and you are pressing it to your ear, and there is a click, and a voice says, "What do you see?" And you say it. The words you have been waiting your whole career to say, the words that mean you saw it in time, the words that mean you did your job. Iceberg, right ahead. There is a pause on the other end of the line, a very brief pause. Then the voice says, "Thank you." The line goes dead. Yet you stand in the crow's nest with the telephone still in your hand, and you watch the iceberg, and you wait for the ship to turn. You have done everything right. This is important to understand. In this moment, in the seconds after you hang up the telephone and grip the railing and watch the pale shape growing in the dark ahead of you, you have done everything a lookout can do. You saw it. You rang the bell. You reported it. The rest is not yours. The rest belongs to the men on the bridge, to the helmsman, to the engines, to the physics of a ship that weighs 46,000 tons moving at 22 knots through water that is nearly at freezing. The rest is already happening without you. You watch. The ship begins to turn. You feel it before you see it. A slight change in the vibration through the mast. The engines doing something different. And then the bow beginning to move. Degrees at a time. Left. Pulling away from the pale mass ahead. For a moment. A long moment. A moment that stretches. You think it is going to be enough. The bow is swinging. The iceberg is to the right now, no longer dead ahead, passing down the starboard side, and you watch it go, and the terrible tension in your chest begins to ease, and you think, "We missed it." You think, "I rang the bell in time." Then you feel the shudder, not an impact, not the crash you were bracing for, the catastrophic meeting of steel and ice that would have thrown every standing person off their feet. Something quieter than that. And a vibration that travels up through the hull and the mast and into your hands on the railing. A sound like a giant hand running along the side of the ship, and then it is gone. The iceberg slides past in the dark and disappears behind you. Lee looks at you. You look at Lee. Did we? He starts. You don't know. You don't know what that shudder was. You don't know what happened below the waterline in the seconds the ice was alongside, what the steel plating absorbed, what the rivets in the hull endured, what the cold ocean found when the two things met. You look back over the stern at the dark water. The iceberg is gone. Below you, 14 decks of human life continue, mostly unaware. In the first-class staterooms, people felt something, a vibration, a strange shudder, and are asking each other what it was. In the third-class berths, people heard something and are listening for more. In the engine rooms, the men who keep this ship moving are about to receive information that will change the nature of the next several hours entirely. In the crow's nest, you are standing at the railing watching the dock where the iceberg was. The ship is still moving. This is not right. Somewhere in you, in the part that reads the ocean, you know this is not right. The ship slows. Not immediately. There is a delay. The machinery of decision-making, working its way through the hierarchy of officers and orders and confirmations. But eventually, perhaps 20 minutes after the shudder, you feel the engines change their rhythm and the great forward momentum of the Titanic begin to bleed away. Then, the engines stop. The silence that follows is extraordinary. That you have been feeling those engines through your feet for 4 days, since Southampton, since the beginning. A constant low thrum, like the heartbeat of something very large. And now it is gone. And the silence it leaves is the loudest thing you have heard on this voyage. The ship sits in the dark, still, no longer cutting forward through the ocean, but simply resting on it. And the water around the hull makes small sounds against the steel, and the stars above you are perfectly, horribly still. Word comes up to the crow's nest eventually. The way word moves on ships, person to person, climbing the decks. The hull has been breached. The ship is taking on water. The pumps cannot keep up. You stand in the crow's nest and you receive this information and you hold it. You rang the bell in time. You reported it correctly. But you did everything right. It was not enough. There will come a moment, not tonight, but later in the weeks and months of inquiry and press and people wanting to know what you saw and when and why you didn't see it sooner. When you will ask yourself whether you could have seen it earlier, whether if you had been watching a different part of the dock or standing at a different angle, or if the binoculars had been there in the locker where they should have been, but that moment is not now. Now there is only the stopped ship and the dark and the water and the understanding, arriving slow and terrible as the iceberg arrived, that something is ending. They relieve you from the crow's nest. You climb down the ladder with hands that have mostly stopped working, gripping each rung more by habit than by sensation. Your boots finding the metal steps automatically while your eyes are on the deck below and what is happening there. The lifeboats are being uncovered. You have known this was coming. The stopped ship, the information that worked its way up to the crow's nest. But seeing it is different from knowing it. The davits are swinging. The covers coming off. The officers moving with the particular controlled urgency of men who are doing the thing they trained for and hoped never to have to do. The passengers beginning to appear on deck, some in their coats and life jackets, some still in their evening clothes, confused, asking questions. Yet you stand on the deck and feel the solid surface under your feet and the cold, which is the same cold as in the crow's nest, but different here. Without the altitude, without the isolation, down here, there are people and their voices and the sounds of a ship preparing for something that cannot be unprepared for. An officer moves through the crowd. You know his face, not his name. Fleet, he says, or possibly he doesn't. Possibly he doesn't know your name at all. Possibly you are simply a man in a uniform, one of hundreds. Help with the boats. You help with the boats. You have been at sea since you were 12 years old. You were placed in the Dr. Barnardo's children's home as a young boy. And at 12 you went to sea because the sea was where boys without options went. And you learned the ocean the way you learn anything, when it is all you have, completely, practically without romance. You learned what the ocean required of you, and you gave it. What the ocean requires of you tonight is different from anything it has required before. You help with the boats. The bow of the ship is lower. You notice this the way you notice changes in the ocean, without deciding to, without looking for it. And once you notice it, you cannot unnotice it. The bow that was level an hour ago is tilted now, degrees, enough to see, enough that the deck under your feet is no longer quite horizontal. You shift your weight slightly, and your body adjusts, and you think, that's not right. That's not how a deck is supposed to feel. The air is colder than it was. But not because the temperature has dropped, though it has, but because the ship is not moving, is not generating its own wind, and the cold of the North Atlantic at 2 in the morning in April is arriving undisturbed, finding you exactly where you stand. People are in the lifeboats. Some of the lifeboats are gone, lowered, pushed off into the dark water below, heading for a safety that seems almost theoretical from here. Almost abstract because the water is very far down and very cold and the boats are very small. From somewhere aft you can hear music. This is the thing that will stay with you. Not the iceberg, not the cold, not the tilt of the deck or the sounds of the ship working against the water coming into it. The music. And because somewhere on this ship, a man has decided, or a group of men have decided together, that the right thing to do in this hour is to play. And so they are playing, and the sound of it travels up through the cold air to where you are standing, and there is something in it that you cannot name. Something that makes the night feel even larger than it already is. You are going to survive this night. You don't know this yet. No one can know it yet in this hour, but you are. You will get into a lifeboat, and the lifeboat will move away from the Titanic, and you will be there when the Carpathia arrives, in the first gray light of morning. You will be pulled aboard. You will be given blankets and hot food, and the specific look that people give you when they understand what you have been through. But first, there is this. The tilted deck, the cold, the music coming from somewhere you cannot see. And in your hands, the memory of a bell rope, pulled 3 times, and a telephone pressed to a numb palm, and a voice on the other end saying thank you. You go into the water in a lifeboat, collapsible D. You will learn this later, in the formal inquiry where they ask you everything and write your answers down. For now, it is simply a boat, wooden, crowded, lowered in the dark with the sounds of the ship above you, and the black water below you, and the faces of the people around you. Strangers, all of you strangers to each other, and all of you holding on to the same thing, which is the fact of being in this boat and not in the water. The oars move. The boat moves away from the ship. You look back. The Titanic is lit up. This is the thing. It is still fully illuminated. Every porthole and every deck light burning. The electricity still running. The ship still alive in that particular way, even as it is dying in every other way. The bow is deep in the water now, the stern lifting, and the angle of it, the angle that your whole body has been trained for 12 years to recognize as wrong, is visible from here, unmistakable. The music has stopped. Around you in the lifeboat no one is speaking. You are rowing, or someone is rowing, the oars working against the flat black water, and the distance between you and the ship is growing, and you are watching the lights. Then the lights go out. All at once, not gradually, not one by one, but all of them, everything, the whole ship going dark in a single moment, and the dark that follows is a different dark from the one before, absolute and total, the kind of dark that your eyes keep trying to push against and cannot. You hear sounds from the water. This is the part you will not speak about for years, the sounds from the water. Later they will ask you, Did you see the ship go down? And you will say yes. Did you hear anything? And you will say yes and not say more than that. What you heard was 1,500 people in the water at 2 degrees Celsius in the middle of the North Atlantic, calling out to the boats. The boats did not go back. You were in one of the boats. You did not decide this. The boat carried you, and the cold and the dark and the shock of the hours carried you, and you were there in the boat, and the sounds were behind you, and the oars kept moving. This is the thing you will carry, not the iceberg, the sounds. The Carpathia appears in the grey light before sunrise. First her lights, small and distant, then her shape, growing, the specific shape of a ship that is not sinking, upright, horizontal, moving toward you with intention. Someone in the lifeboat makes a sound, not a word, a sound. By the time you climb the rope ladder onto the Carpathia's deck, the sun is coming up. A cold sun, a pale April sun, throwing its flat light across the ocean and the ice. Because there is ice everywhere now, you can see it in the daylight. The field of it, the bergs and the growlers and the small flat pieces, the whole landscape of it that was invisible in the dark. Someone gives you a blanket. Someone gives you something hot to drink. You stand at the railing of the Carpathia and you look at the place where the Titanic was. There is nothing there. No debris you can see from here, no mark on the water, nothing that tells you what was in that place 8 hours ago. The ocean has already accepted it. But the ocean accepts everything eventually. This is one of the first things you learned when you went to sea at 12. The fact of the ocean's indifference. The way it receives everything you give it, and gives nothing back. You are alive. You are cold. You are wrapped in a blanket on a ship that is not the ship you boarded in Southampton. And the ship you boarded in Southampton is on the floor of the North Atlantic, and 2,000 people are with it. You rang the bell in time. You said the words. You stand at the railing and look at the water, and the water looks back at you and says nothing. Frederick Fleet will give testimony at 2 official inquiries, one in America, one in Britain. He will be asked about the binoculars many times. He will be asked about the time between sighting the iceberg and reporting it. He will be asked, and in various ways and with various degrees of kindness and unkindness, whether he could have done something differently. He will say, "I done my duty." He will say this at the American inquiry on April 23, 1912. He will say it quietly without drama, as a statement of simple fact. It was simple fact. He done his duty. The iceberg did not care. You are in a lifeboat on the North Atlantic. The water is still. The stars are going out one by one as the sky lightens. Somewhere behind you, receding with every pull of the oars, is the place where everything you were standing on an hour ago has gone. You are cold down to the bone, cold in places you didn't know could be cold, but you are breathing. The oars move. The Carpathia is getting closer. Close your eyes. You made it to morning. A note of history. Frederick Fleet was born in Liverpool in 1887 and spent most of his childhood in the Dr. Barnardo's children's home after his mother emigrated to America without him. He went to sea at 12 and spent his career as a merchant seaman and lookout. On the night of April 14, 1912, Fleet was on watch in the Crow's Nest with Reginald Lee when he spotted the iceberg at 11:39 p.m. and telephoned the bridge. The Titanic attempted to turn, but struck the iceberg's underwater shelf along the starboard side. Fleet survived in collapsible lifeboat D. The binoculars question followed Fleet for the rest of his life. At the American Senate inquiry, Senator William Alden Smith asked Fleet directly whether binoculars would have made a difference. Fleet replied, "We could have seen it a bit sooner." Smith pressed further. "How much sooner?" Fleet said, "Well, enough to get out of the way." The sea was unusually calm that night, which, counterintuitively, made ice harder to detect. Under normal conditions, waves breaking against the base of an iceberg create a white froth that is visible in the dark. On a glassy sea with no waves, there is no froth. The iceberg was dark at its waterline. Fleet was looking at a black object against a black ocean with no moon. He did, by any reasonable measure, everything correctly. Frederick Fleet worked as a ship's lookout for years after the disaster. He later worked as a newspaper seller on the streets of Southampton. His wife died in 1965, and shortly afterward, at the age of 77, Fleet took his own life. He is buried in Southampton. The crow's nest bell from the Titanic was recovered and is now in the Maritime Museum at Liverpool. Fleet's name is not on it. His name is not on much. But, on the night of April 14, 1912, in the dark above the North Atlantic, he was the first to see what was coming. Good night.